Tis the season for snow, and while I've had 2 serious injuries in my life related to sledding, I never grew out of it and still enjoy careening down a hill on an inner tube. But surprisingly, snow isn't all fun and games and breaking teeth and legs on the weekends. Any snowstorm can be life-threatening, but blizzards are especially dangerous.
My name is Laura Zara.
The most important thing is not dying.
I'm a survival and backcountry specialist.
I'm getting caught on every tree branch. Whew. I love antlers.
I have a hard time explaining what I do and what my life looks like.
But it's way easier to just show you.
Sometimes you end up in the wrong place at the wrong time, and you can't always predict where the bears are gonna be. Learn what it takes to become decivilized.
A blizzard is defined as a weather event with winds of at least 35 miles an hour, with snow blowing and or falling, and that has to last for at least 3 hours. Visibility is reduced to a quarter mile or less. So wind can technically create what's called a ground blizzard, and that doesn't require any falling snow. It can just be the wind causing the snow that's already there to be blowing around. And blizzards are particularly dangerous because of that reduced visibility. Whether you're driving or on foot, travel is almost impossible because you can't see. Add in the wind chill factor and already cold temperatures, things can get pretty gnarly pretty fast. Obviously, hypothermia is going to be a huge concern, as well as frostbite. You can watch my episode on hypothermia to get a refresher on how to deal with that. Even if a snowstorm doesn't meet all the criteria of a blizzard, any snowstorm can still have some of these characteristics, and at certain times the conditions can be blizzard-like. So this kind of applies to all major snowstorms. A blizzard is a great time to hunker down. Even in the relative safety of your own home, you could potentially be dealing with a power outage, and if the conditions on the road are bad enough, emergency services can be completely shut down. So just kind of chill out and try not to do anything crazy like run with scissors. There's also a fair amount of deaths from heart attacks, so try to take it easy and don't be all willy-nilly with your snow removal. If you do lose power, make sure to remember to watch what you're using as a heat source, because you really don't want to be dealing with the potential for carbon monoxide poisoning. I, for one, hate driving in snow, and it's not because I don't trust my vehicle or my driving abilities. It's going back to that whole trust thing where I'm really not trusting everyone else's ability and experience driving in snow. Just because you have a 4-wheel drive vehicle does not mean the laws of physics no longer apply to you. If you're careening along at a fast pace on ice, you're probably not going to be able to stop as quickly as you normally can.
All right, we're hopelessly stuck in Minnehaha, so this is what we're doing. It's completely ridiculous.
Sometimes people who have less experience driving in snow and just aren't used to it, forget that. I've also been driving in winter weather and had a vehicle pass coming the other way, and the wind kicks up all of this snow and you're just blinded for a second. Particularly bad with tractor trailers, and it's not a great feeling. Natural wind can also pick up and cause this same effect, so be ready at any moment to not be able to see. Whiteout conditions can reduce your visibility to almost zero at any moment in time, and I don't think I have to get into why driving by feel is not a good idea. Ice and snow can also build up in your wheel wells and make turning really difficult. There's not a great way to get all of that out if it turns to ice, unless you use a pickaxe and risk damaging your vehicle. So if it's just in the snow phase and isn't ice, you can try kicking that out when you're stopped to try to prevent it from turning into ice. If you absolutely have to drive during a snowstorm, then make sure you're checking the weather conditions along every single part of your journey so that you know what to expect. A lot of times mountain passes even have webcams. You can go online and see what you're going to be driving into. If I'm worried about not having enough traction, sometimes I will throw sandbags in the back of my truck to add more weight. And if I do get stuck, I can use the sand in those bags to create some extra traction on the ground. Make sure you remember to put your extra items into your emergency car kit. Make sure you also have a shovel in case you have to dig yourself out. If you do need to pull over, make sure that you're pulling over somewhere safe where someone else who can't see isn't gonna just smash into the back of you. Follow the guidelines about only starting your car for a couple minutes every hour, making sure your tailpipe is clear, and also if you have that emergency candle, you can light that every once in a while to create some heat. Do not try to walk out during a blizzard. Don't do it. It's not worth it. Even if you only have a little ways to go and you know you can get there, it's really hard to see and it's really hard for other people to see you. Why leave a perfectly good shelter of your vehicle if you don't have to? I've had several situations where I've had to hunker down in my vehicle, and it's kind of nice to have an isolated little retreat.
Got about 16 inches of snow so far. I'm cuddled up here in my sleeping bag. Got a candle going for some warmth, and until this snow lets up, I'm just stuck here in my truck.
If you have a cell phone, keep it in an inner pocket so that it has your body heat to keep it warm. I've had my cell phone battery go from 100% to completely dead because the battery got too cold. And even if you don't have service, you're gonna wanna preserve that battery in case you do get to an area where you do have service. If you are in the backcountry during a true blizzard, you need to immediately hunker down. Trying to walk out, you're not only exposed to that freezing wind chill and potential frostbite and hypothermia, but the dangers of getting lost aren't just that you don't know where you are. You could potentially wander off a cliff that you can't see because of a whiteout. There could be drifting snow and cornices that prevent you from knowing you're walking on thin air. You could be walking over freezing water that is still there under that blanket of snow. Even uneven terrain that's hidden by the snow can cause you to twist an ankle and essentially leave you unable to do much to make your situation better. I would recommend checking the weather wherever you're going to be going out, and if there's a potential for a bad storm and you aren't 100% confident that your winter survival skills are adequate to let you survive in a worst case scenario, make other plans. There's a lot of places that snow can happen in any month of the year, so make sure that you know where you're going and if that is a potential. If you are venturing out into the backcountry in a place where snow is a possibility, having a bivy sack and a sleeping bag in your pack, in addition to your O-ship bag, isn't a bad idea. So, how do you hunker down? I want to start with a little word about snow caves. Now, I feel like snow caves are kind of similar to bow drills, and that people get this elevated sense of their ability to complete that task when they've just seen it in a movie once. It's something that requires a great deal of skill and actual practical experience before you get out there, because you're probably not going to be doing it under ideal conditions, and you don't want to have to learn how to troubleshoot all these little problems when you're in it. Snow caves require the right amount and the right kind of snow, and they take hours, not minutes, to build. You're probably going to be spending those hours exposed to potentially the worst parts of the storm and just out in the elements that whole time. You really need tools to do it with any kind of ease, and you're probably also going to be soaking wet after you finish. Then you are literally climbing into a cave that is made of ice and snow. So you better have something really insulating to put down, because you're going to be sitting right on that. Kind of reminds me of in the summer, you can have a warm canned beverage and you just place it right on a bucket of ice and it gets cold, and that's going to be you. You also have to worry about proper ventilation and make sure that you're not getting carbon monoxide poisoning and that you don't suffocate in there. You also have to worry about making sure that your insurance doesn't get sealed up so that you've essentially just made a frozen tomb for yourself. Oh, and hopefully you didn't make that thing in a spot where you could potentially get hit by an avalanche, because there's that. That being said, snow caves have absolutely saved lives, and there's certain situations, like if you're above tree line and you don't have a good 4-season tent with you, where that is a necessity. If you don't have trees and materials to build a shelter, it is your only option, and snow is a great insulator. But if you haven't built one and had experience and been trained in that, I wouldn't even suggest going into those areas if there's a potential that you're going to be stuck there riding out a massive storm. Hopefully, if there is snow moving in and you're close to tree line, you can get into a more densely forested area so that you have those trees that not only act as a wind block, but provide resources for you to make a shelter that's going to be way faster and way better to make something that you can hunker down in to ride it out. Look for the start of a natural shelter. An evergreen tree where the snow isn't coming down quite as hard and the wind isn't blowing quite as crazy. Look for some kind of void that you could potentially dig out and reinforce to get out of the elements a little bit more than you already are. You can take branches and put them up against a tree trunk. Even if there's kind of that blowing wind where the shifting directions and the snow's moving all over the place, there's normally a prevailing wind. So you're gonna wanna try to figure out if that's happening and put your entrance away from that prevailing wind. You wanna create a wind block that's dense enough to catch any snow that's gonna be falling, which is just gonna add to your insulation. You can even throw some existing snow onto it to block any gaps that you may have. Remember, if there's a massive amount of snow that's falling down, you're gonna want something that can support the weight of that snow. Really steep angles are good for allowing that snow to fall down and rest against the ground and then pile up, instead of having something suspended where that snow is just building up and building up till whatever you have above you breaks. You can take some pine boughs and put them on the ground to elevate you up off of that cold ground so you're not just losing all of your heat. If you have a backpack, you can even throw that on top of the boughs so that you're a little bit more protected from the ground. Be especially careful to try to keep your clothes as dry as possible while you're building this shelter. I like to put all of my waterproof layers on, and if you do have inner layers and you're starting to sweat, take the time to get those inner layers off and put them in a dry place. When you're finished, put them back on immediately, and hopefully that way you won't be just freezing cold from being in your own sweaty clothes. Hopefully you brought your OSHIP bag and you have an emergency blanket. I would put that someplace handy in case you start getting really cold and need to wrap yourself up in it. If you do have a lighter with you, make sure that you have it inside against your body heat so that fuel stays warm. If you forgot and the fuel is cold, it's not too late, it's not ruined. You can just throw it up against your body and then you'll be able to light it as soon as it heats up a little bit. If you have time, bring as much wood as you can inside of your shelter so that it's really easily accessible and you're not trying to dig it out of a pile of snow that forms. If there are rocks that aren't completely covered in snow and frozen into the ground, you can take those and pile them up against the back side of your fire pit. This is gonna prevent the wind from blowing your fire too much. It's gonna kind of reflect that heat back towards you. And it's also a great time to get some of those rocks to potentially heat up so that you have some cuddle rocks to keep you warm. Once you have a fire, make sure that you're watching the trees for those massive buildups of snow that reach their tipping point and then just drop out of the sky, which is exactly what happened in To Build a Fire, which I think about that Jack London short story all the time. It haunts my dreams in the winter because I never want to be in that situation. I have been, but I was ready for it and it was fine. Fun fact, the word blizzard was first used in 1870 in Iowa in a newspaper to describe a raging storm. But it actually comes from war, and it's used to describe a volley of shots. For example, send a blizzard when you can see the whites of their eyes. Any weather event that takes its name from war is one that I'm gonna be taking seriously. Stay safe out there, especially if you go sledding. It can also... Did I just hear something? I thought I heard a dog whining, but I think it was a bird. Has reduced visibility of 1/4 mile or less. Wow, why is it so hard to say? Nearly completely. Is that a thing?